You know what hurts the most? Standing in front of a screen, scrolling through pictures of your husband's family, all dressed up, raising champagne glasses at his brother's engagement party, and realizing you were never even invited. Not forgotten, not accidentally left out. Number, you were deliberately erased, like you didn't exist. If you're watching, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets a lot more interesting, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But let me back up and tell you about what I went through and how the ending changed everything. But let me rewind a little, because honestly, you have to see how the little cracks started showing before the whole damn thing collapsed. It was a Thursday morning, one of those foggy Bay Area mornings where the light doesn't quite know if it wants to stay or fade back into the mist. I was sitting at the kitchen counter with my coffee, extra cream, no sugar, because I like it soft in the mornings. My husband Jacob was across from me, hunched over his phone. At first, I didn't pay much attention. He always starts the day scrolling, clearing emails, checking the news. That's normal. But then I saw it. This tiny flicker of panic crossed his face like a shadow. He glanced at me, then his thumb moved quick, too quick, and just like that, poof, message gone. Deleted. And listen, I'm not the kind of wife who snoops through phones or interrogates every text. I've always believed if you have to police your partner, the relationship's already half dead. But the way he moved, like a teenager caught hiding cigarettes, it made my stomach flip. I set my mug down, tried to sound casual. Who's that? He cleared his throat, looked anywhere but my eyes. Oh, just Dylan. He's putting together this little family thing in the city. Golf, dinner, just a reunion, nothing fancy. Something about the way he said it, flat, clipped, like he was choosing words off a menu, and my radar lit up. Because here's the thing. With Jacob's family, nothing is ever nothing fancy. The Whitakers don't do casual. They don't do pizza on paper plates or BYOB in somebody's backyard. Every get-together has calligraphy place cards, floral centerpieces, wine pairings. And when he said golf, I almost laughed. Jacob hates golf, always has. He calls it expensive lawn walking. So why the sudden enthusiasm? But I didn't press, not right away. See, I grew up in a tiny Midwestern town where family meant folding chairs in the garage and casseroles that could feed an army. Everyone belonged. Even if you weren't blood, you got a plate, you got a hug, you were in. So when I met Jacob at a marketing conference in San Francisco, me with my thrift store blazer, him with his perfect smile and those cufflinks that probably cost more than my monthly rent, I thought I'd stumbled into a fairy tale. He swept me up so easily, like he saw me, really saw me. What I didn't realize back then was that marrying Jacob also meant marrying into the Whitaker dynasty. Old Bay Area money, polished to a shine, the kind of family that never says out loud you don't belong, but shows you in 1,000 tiny cuts. The way his mother's eyes slid past me at Thanksgiving, the way his sister Isabella would forget to include me in the group text about holiday plans, the way they'd smile all teeth and no warmth when I'd try to tell a story, then quickly redirect the conversation back to themselves. It wasn't cruelty, not exactly. It was exclusion disguised as manners. And I told myself it didn't matter. Jacob loved me. That was the bridge. That was enough. Or at least I wanted it to be. So when he mentioned this so-called reunion, I smiled and said, that sounds fun. Should I clear my schedule? And that's when he hesitated, just for a beat. But I caught it. Actually, he said, setting his phone down, I was thinking maybe you should go up to Tahoe with Mia and Zoe. Didn't they invite you for that ski weekend? You've been working so hard, babe. You deserve it. Fresh air, snow, girls' trip. I'll just be with the family for a couple of days. Nothing you'd enjoy, really. Golf, remember? He even smiled, like he was doing me a favor, like shipping me off to the mountains was some kind of gift. And maybe another woman would have pushed back right there, demanded to know why her husband didn't want her at a family gathering. But me, I just sat there, nodding slowly, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Because here's the truth. Part of me wanted to go to Tahoe. I love the snow, the way it silences the world. I love being with Mia and Zoe, my two ride or die friends from college. They don't care about cufflinks or pedigrees. With them, I can breathe. So I told Jacob, okay, Tahoe sounds great. That night, when he wasn't looking, I slipped a little note into his suitcase. Just a sticky note, nothing dramatic. It said, love you. Be kind. Don't forget me. And I drew a tiny heart, Corny, I know, but I wanted him to know I was thinking of him. Fast forward 2 days, and I'm in Lake Tahoe, bundled in layers, laughing with Mia and Zoe as we fall off the ski lift like amateurs. For a while, I let myself forget the tension. I let the snow and the firelight and the hot toddies blur the edges. But at night, when the laughter faded and I was alone with my phone, that unease crept back in. I'd scroll Instagram absentmindedly, double tap friends' photos until one picture stopped me cold. A crystal chandelier, a champagne tower, a caption, "Congrats, Dylan and Charlotte." And there, right in the center of the photo, was Jacob, my husband, smiling wide, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by his family. Not at a reunion, not at a golf game, but at a damn engagement party for his brother. And me? Nowhere. It felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. My heart didn't just break, it splintered. Because in that moment, I realized it wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about oversight. It was intentional. They didn't want me there. And Jacob, he went along with it. I tried calling him. Once, twice. Straight to voicemail. Text left unread. And sitting there, in that lodge, with the fire crackling and snow falling outside, I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit for years. I wasn't part of his family. I was a guest. A temporary visitor they tolerated only because Jacob insisted. But the worst part? He didn't insist this time. I swear I sat there staring at that picture for a good 5 minutes. Like if I blinked, maybe it would change. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe it was some old photo resurfacing, or maybe Jacob had told me and I'd just forgotten. My brain kept trying to rewrite reality because the alternative was too damn painful. But no, the caption was fresh, the champagne still bubbling, Dylan's face glowing next to Charlotte's, the comments pouring in. So happy for you guys. Best party ever. And there, again and again, tag after tag after tag. But never mind. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. I tried calling Jacob again, straight to voicemail. Tried FaceTime, no answer. Texted him, "What the hell, Jacob? Why didn't you tell me?" Nothing. Just that tiny, infuriating, delivered check mark, mocking me. I remember Mia walking back into the lodge, cheeks red from the cold, holding 2 cups of cocoa. She saw my face and stopped mid-step. "Anna, what happened?" And I just turned the screen to her, didn't say a word. She gasped so loud the people at the next table turned their heads. "Are you kidding me right now?" No. He did not do this to you." Zoe slid in right after, tugging off her gloves, and when she saw the photo, she muttered, "Jesus Christ." "He lied straight to your face." And that's when it hit me. Not just that Jacob had lied, not just that his family had kept me out, but that he had let them. He had chosen silence over me, comfort over conflict, their approval over my dignity. It burned. God, it burned. I didn't even realize I was crying until Mia grabbed a napkin and started dabbing under my eyes. And I laughed, this bitter, shaky laugh, because what else could I do? I said, "You know what's funny? I left him a love note in his damn suitcase." While he was packing a suit for that, silence fell over our table. The kind of silence that weighs 100 pounds. And then Zoe said softly but firmly, "You need to call him out." I shook my head. "He won't pick up." "I'm not talking about calling him. I mean, call them. Let the whole damn world see what they did. They want to erase you? Fine. Put yourself back in the picture." At first, the idea sounded insane. I've never been that kind of person. The one who broadcasts their heartbreak online, who makes cryptic posts begging for attention. But the more I sat with it, the more it made sense. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every time I'd been sidelined, ignored, made to feel small in that family. This was about the years I'd spent biting my tongue, hoping if I was patient enough, gracious enough, they'd accept me. They never would. So later that evening, I walked out to the Tahoe summit. The wind bit at my cheeks, the snow crunching under my boots, the sky turning gold as the sun sank behind the mountains. I pulled off my glove, snapped a picture of myself against that breathtaking backdrop. My eyes were still red from crying, but I didn't care. I wanted it raw. And then I wrote the caption. Short, sharp, a little knife hidden in poetry. Funny how some parties aren't meant for all the daughters-in-law. Good thing the mountains never keep score. I hit post, heart racing, fingers shaking. Within minutes, the likes started rolling in. Then the comments. At first, just friends. "Wait, what's going on? You okay, Anna?" But then it spread. People started sharing, interpreting, connecting dots. Someone reposted it with, "Imagine being married and finding out you weren't invited to your husband's family event." And that blew up. By the next morning, my phone was a war zone. Hundreds of notifications. DMs from strangers saying they'd been through the same thing, weddings they weren't invited to, family events where they were excluded. My pain had tapped into something bigger, something universal. And Jacob, still silent. That silence hurt more than the party. Because if he had called, if he had fought for me, defended me, apologized, anything, I might have softened. But nothing, just his absence echoing louder with every hour. When I finally saw him again, 3 days later, I was done. I came home early, suitcase in hand, heart pounding. He was sitting on the couch, still in his dress shoes, looking wrecked, like he hadn't slept. His phone buzzed nonstop on the table beside him. "Anna," he started, standing up like a kid caught stealing cookies. "I can explain." I cut him off. Just don't. But of course, he tried. He said his mother had insisted. Said she didn't want tension at Dylan's big night. Said it was all about keeping the vibe perfect. His word, vibe. I laughed. God, I laughed so hard it scared him. "So the vibe mattered more than your wife?" He dropped his gaze, couldn't even look at me. And in that moment, I saw the truth. Jacob wasn't the villain. He wasn't cruel. He was weak. Too weak to stand up to his family. Too weak to choose me when it counted. And weakness can hurt just as bad as malice. I went upstairs, started pulling clothes from drawers, stuffing them into a bag. He followed me, begging, voice cracking, but I couldn't hear it anymore. My ears were ringing with every time he'd stayed silent, every time he'd let me twist in the wind just to keep the peace. When I walked out that door with my suitcase, I swear the air felt lighter, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. I didn't know what came next. I just knew it couldn't be this. Not anymore. You'd think walking out the door would feel like the end of the story. Suitcase in one hand, dignity in the other. Cue the credits. But that's the thing about endings. They're messy. They're never clean. When I left Jacob, I didn't feel powerful or free. I felt gutted, like someone had scooped out everything I thought I knew about love and left me hollow. I crashed at Zoe's apartment in Oakland. She didn't even ask questions. Just opened the door, pulled me into a hug, and shoved a blanket into my hands. Her place smelled like vanilla candles and takeout noodles. And for the first time in days, I felt safe enough to fall apart. I curled up on her couch and cried until my head ached. And the whole time, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications piling up, hundreds, then thousands. My post, the one from Tahoe, had gone viral in a way I never imagined. People were stitching it, sharing their own stories. Women, men, even teenagers, all talking about moments they'd been excluded. Silenced, erased. Some of them thanked me, some of them were angry, on my behalf. Some just said, same. It was overwhelming. Every ping was a reminder of what I'd lost, but also, strangely, of what I'd gained. See, I'd spent years trying to be small enough, quiet enough, good enough for the Whitakers. And in one impulsive moment, I had blown the whole facade apart. And instead of being met with shame, I was met with solidarity. But I wasn't ready to feel strong. Not yet. The first week was brutal. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. I kept replaying everything Jacob said. Vibe, vibe, vibe. Like it was some sick mantra. I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced I'd made a mistake, that maybe if I'd just been more patient, more charming, more something, his family would have embraced me eventually. And then I'd open my phone and see another message. A woman in Texas writing, "My husband's family left me out of his sister's baby shower. Thank you for making me feel less alone." A man from New York saying, "My partner hid me for years because his parents didn't accept me. I left. Best decision I ever made. Little by little, their words became a lifeline. Zoe and Mia were my anchors too. They never let me sink. Every night, one of them would sit with me, glass of wine in hand, and remind me who I was outside of Jacob. "You're more than their rejection," Zoe would say. "You're not broken." They are still. It wasn't easy. One night, I almost called him. My finger hovered over his name, my chest tight with longing and anger tangled together. But then I remembered the look on his face when he couldn't even defend me. That silence. That weakness. And I put the phone down. Instead, I started small. I went to a yoga class Zoe dragged me to. At first, I just laid there on the mat, tears sliding down my face while everyone else moved through sun salutations. But by the end, when I finally managed to take one deep breath that didn't hurt, I realized something. I hadn't breathed like that in years. And it kept happening. Little cracks of light breaking through. I started walking by the lake in the mornings, headphones in, podcasts playing, the fresh air, the birds, the simple rhythm of my feet hitting the ground. It reminded me that my body was still mine, that life was still moving forward, even if I wasn't ready to. Then came the emails. A brand reached out, said they'd seen my post, loved my writing, wanted to know if I'd collaborate. At first, I thought it was a scam. Me, the girl crying on a couch in Oakland. But they were serious. And then another company emailed, and then a podcast producer. Suddenly, the thing that had broken me wide open was also opening doors I never thought possible. It was surreal to go from the wife who wasn't invited to someone people wanted to hear from. And yet, even with the noise, the support, the opportunities, there were quiet moments that cut deep, like when I brushed my teeth and realized his toothbrush wasn't next to mine anymore. Or when I made coffee and caught myself pouring 2 mugs by habit. Or the ache in my chest when I saw his favorite sweatshirt at the bottom of my bag. Grief is strange like that. It sneaks up on you in the smallest, dumbest ways. One Friday night, a week after I left, I found myself back in Tahoe. I didn't plan it. I just drove. Needed to see the place where it all came apart. The mountains looked different this time. Less like a backdrop for heartbreak, more like witnesses. Silent, steady, reminding me the world doesn't stop because your heart does. I stood at the summit again, snow stinging my face, and for the first time, I didn't feel erased. I felt seen by myself, by the strangers who had messaged me, by the universe, maybe. I whispered out loud, I'm still here. And it felt true. When I drove back down, I realized something. Jacob had taken my place at that party, but he couldn't take my story. That belonged to me, and I wasn't going to let them write me out again. The next morning, I made a decision. No more crying on couches. No more replaying the same questions. I was going to build something new, something mine. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But each day, I chose one small thing. A yoga class, a coffee date with a friend, a new project, a solo hike, and each choice stacked on the last. Until one day, You know that moment when the fog finally lifts and you realize you've been stumbling around in the dark for so long you almost forgot what light feels like? That's where I found myself. Not suddenly, not all at once, but slowly, like a sunrise sneaking in through the blinds. It started with the little things. One morning, I woke up at Zoe's and noticed I hadn't cried myself to sleep the night before. It was such a tiny detail, but it hit me hard. Because for a week straight, every night ended with my chest caving in, my pillow wet. And suddenly it didn't. The tiny crack of peace. It felt like proof. Proof that I wasn't going to drown forever. I leaned into it. Yoga became more than just stretching on a mat. It became therapy. Every inhale felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd handed over to the Whitakers. Every exhale felt like letting go of one more ounce of their judgment. Sometimes I still cried during class, silent tears slipping down while everyone else held their warrior pose. But instead of shame, I started to feel release, and the messages kept coming. Strangers cheering me on, people telling me I was brave. Honestly, I didn't feel brave. I felt broken. But when enough people hold up a mirror and show you strength, eventually you start to believe it. Then came the first big opportunity. A women's wellness brand emailed me about writing a piece for their blog. They wanted me to talk about exclusion, resilience, self-worth. Me, someone who thought she'd lost her voice in a family that never listened, was suddenly being asked to share it. I remember sitting at Zoe's kitchen table, laptop open, heart pounding as I typed. The words spilled out of me, not polished, not perfect, just raw. About how it feels to be told you don't fit, about how easy it is to shrink yourself just to get a seat at someone else's table, and about how freeing it is to realize you don't need that damn table at all. When it published, it exploded. Shared thousands of times. People tagged their friends saying, This is exactly what I went through. It was like my pain had turned into a bridge, connecting me to people I'd never meet but somehow already knew. For the first time in years, I felt useful. Like maybe everything I'd endured wasn't for nothing. Jacob, of course, tried to reach out. A dozen missed calls, texts like, Please, Anna, just talk to me. But I didn't, because what was left to say? He'd made his choice, and so had I. Instead, I poured myself into building something new. I started freelancing. I writing, consulting, sharing my story. Brands wanted my voice, podcasts wanted my perspective, women's groups wanted me to speak. Each yes built a little more confidence. Each new project felt like stacking bricks, laying the foundation for a life that belonged only to me. And it wasn't just work. I started living differently too. On weekends, I'd take solo trips, back to Tahoe, down the coast, anywhere I could feel small against something bigger than me. The mountains, the ocean. They reminded me that my world wasn't ending. It was expanding. One trip stands out. I hiked up to Emerald Bay alone, early in the morning. The lake stretched out like glass, the water so still it looked painted. I stood there, breathless, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the girl who was left out. I felt like the woman who walked away. And that difference? It's everything. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's not about erasing the hurt. It's about carrying it differently, like turning a jagged rock over in your hand until it smooths out. The weight doesn't vanish, but it stops cutting you open. By the end of that summer, I barely recognized myself. The woman who once tiptoed around the Whitakers, desperate to belong, was gone. In her place was someone louder, freer, a little reckless maybe, but alive in a way she hadn't been in years. I dyed my hair darker, bought a leather jacket, started saying no without apologizing. And every time I caught myself smiling for no reason, I thought, so this is what it feels like to choose yourself. And here's the kicker. The more I stepped into my own life, the more the world responded. A friend from college reached out about starting a project together. A wellness retreat asked me to lead a workshop on boundaries. Even my Instagram grew, not from staged photos, but from honesty. People wanted the real, messy, unfiltered truth, and I had plenty of that to give. Sometimes late at night, I'd still think about Jacob, about the way he looked at me across that kitchen table, like he wanted to say something but never did. And it hurt, yeah, but the hurt didn't control me anymore, because the Whitakers might have erased me from their party, but I'd written myself into something bigger, my own story, my own future. And if there's one thing I learned standing on that mountain, it's this. When someone tells you you don't belong, you don't shrink, you don't beg, you don't break yourself to fit their mold. You build something of your own, and that's the party nobody can uninvite you from. There's this thing people don't tell you about healing. One day it sneaks up on you, not in some grand fireworks kind of way. It happens in the smallest, quietest moment. For me, it was on a Tuesday morning. I was sitting at a cafe in Berkeley, laptop open, working on a piece for a women's magazine. The barista brought over my latte and I took the first sip, and suddenly I realized I wasn't thinking about Jacob. Not about his family, not about the night I walked out. I was just enjoying my coffee. It sounds ridiculous, right? But that was the moment I knew I was really coming back to life. Because for so long, my joy had been tied to survival. If I laughed, it was to hide the hurt. If I smiled, it was to keep the peace. But now, joy felt different. It wasn't borrowed, or forced, or conditional. It was mine. Pure. Simple. And once I noticed it, I started chasing it. I said yes to things I never would have before. A salsa class with Mia, where I tripped over my own feet and laughed until my stomach hurt. A pottery workshop where I ended up with a lopsided bowl that I proudly displayed on Zoe's shelf. Weekend road trips with no agenda. Just a playlist and the open road. And every time I did something new, I felt that old version of me, the one who used to shrink in the Whitaker's shadow, fall further and further behind. One night, Zoe and I were sitting on her balcony with a bottle of wine. She looked at me and said, "You know, you glow differently now." I laughed. "What does that even mean?" "It means," she said, clinking her glass against mine, "you finally look like you belong in your own skin." That hit me because for years I'd been trying to belong in someone else's world. And now for the first time I belonged in mine. And let me tell you, the universe noticed. The viral post had already opened doors, but now the floodgates were wide. I was invited to speak on panels about resilience, to mentor younger women in marketing, even to host a small workshop at a retreat center in Tahoe. The irony wasn't lost on me, that the very place where I'd discovered my betrayal was now the place where I was helping others heal. I stood in front of a group of women in yoga pants and cozy sweaters, the fire crackling behind me, and I told my story. Not the polished version, the real one. about the note I left in Jacob's suitcase, about the moment I saw that Instagram photo, about the choice to leave. When I finished, the room was silent. Then, one by one, women started sharing their own stories about families who never accepted them, about partners who didn't fight for them, about the strength it takes to walk away. And in that moment, I realized something. My pain had turned into power. Not the flashy kind, not the kind you post about with glittery quotes. Real power. The kind that connects people, the kind that heals. But here's the best part. I was happy. Not just okay, not just surviving, happy. I'd wake up in the mornings excited about my day. I'd dance around the kitchen making breakfast. I'd sing in the car again. Even the quiet moments felt full. And the strangest thing, I started to feel grateful. Grateful for the heartbreak, grateful for the exclusion, grateful for the night I found myself standing in the snow, phone in hand, realizing the truth. Because without all of that, I wouldn't have found this. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't some saint who never felt bitterness. Sometimes I'd still scroll past a Whitaker photo. Isabella in Paris, Dylan and Charlotte planning their wedding, and feel that sting, but it didn't own me anymore. It was just a passing ache, like a bruise that had already healed. And Jacob, I heard from him here and there. Emails I didn't open, voicemails I deleted without listening. I didn't hate him, I just didn't need him anymore. The truth is, his silence that night at the party told me everything I needed to know. And once you've seen someone's truth, you can't unsee it. By fall, I had moved into my own little apartment in Oakland. Nothing fancy. White walls, creaky floors, secondhand furniture, but it was mine. I painted the kitchen a warm yellow, filled the shelves with books and plants, hung fairy lights across the window. Every corner screamed me, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I was borrowing space in someone else's life. I remember lying on the floor one night, fairy lights glowing, music playing, and just smiling. No reason, just smiling. And I thought, so this is what freedom feels like. Freedom and joy. And the best part, I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to fit into someone's idea of the perfect vibe. I didn't have to twist myself into knots to be included. I was enough, as I was. And that realization, that was worth more than any party I was ever excluded from. People always want to know how the story ends. Like, there's some neat little bow to tie it all up. Did I ever go back to Jacob? Did his family ever apologize? Did I get revenge? Some dramatic showdown that proved my worth? And the answer is no. No apologies came. No sudden changes of heart. No phone call from his mother begging me to return. And at first that stung, because some part of me still craved it. That acknowledgement, that validation, that moment of them finally seeing me. But here's the truth. I didn't need it anymore. The ending wasn't in their hands. It was in mine. And that's the part nobody tells you about walking away. You think the victory will come when they admit they were wrong, when they finally regret what they did. But the real victory, it's when you stop caring whether they ever do. One night, months later, I found myself back in Tahoe again, alone. I'd driven up on a whim, windows down, music blasting, just me and the open road. The air was sharp, the kind of cold that clears your head. I hiked up to the same summit where I'd taken that photo, the one that started everything. And standing there, looking out over the lake, I felt it. Closure. Not because anything had been fixed, but because I wasn't broken anymore. I whispered to myself, "You made it." And I swear, the mountains whispered back. I took another picture that day. Same spot, same backdrop of snow and sky. But this time, no tears, no cryptic caption, just me, smiling. And I wrote, "Some views are better when you stand alone." It didn't go viral. Hardly anyone even noticed it, and that was perfect. Because this time, it wasn't for them. It was for me. By then, my life had shifted in ways I never expected. I'd built a career out of honesty, out of sharing the messy truth. I was speaking, writing, creating. I'd built friendships deeper than I ever thought possible. And every day, I woke up knowing I didn't have to fight for a seat at someone else's table. I had my own. Sometimes people would ask, do you regret it? Marrying him, loving him, giving so much to a family that never gave back? And my answer surprised even me. Number. Because without all of it, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the exclusion, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know my own strength. I wouldn't have learned that being uninvited can be the greatest invitation of all, to your own life. See, the Whitakers taught me something, though not in the way they intended. They taught me that love without respect is empty. That silence can wound as deeply as words, and that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is walk away. And Jacob, I don't hate him. I never will. He was weak, yes. He failed me, yes. But he also brought me to the edge of myself and forced me to find the courage to leap. For that, strangely, I'm grateful. Now, when I look back, it doesn't feel like a tragedy. It feels like a rebirth. Because here's what I know now. Life is too short to beg for belonging. Too short to shrink yourself for people who will never see your worth. Too short to wait for a table that was never set for you. So I built my own. And the people who sit with me now, they see me, really see me. No conditions, no vibe requirements, just love. And if you're listening to this, maybe you've been where I was. Maybe you felt erased, overlooked, excluded. If so, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me back then. You don't need their invitation. You never did. You are the party. You are the celebration. You are the story worth telling. And the moment you realize that, that's the moment you stop waiting at closed doors and start walking toward open skies. That's the ending. Or maybe that's just the beginning. If this story touched you, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story. And please, tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts.